Mobile is one of the most disruptive forces we've ever seen. It's bigger than the internet and PC eras combined. I sat with some of the greatest minds in mobile and asked them one question: how is mobile going to disrupt their business? You'd be surprised by their answers. What's about to be disrupted in your industry that hasn't already been done? I mean, when you look out into the coming year, there's got to be some big disruption going on.
Yeah, I think there'll be continued disruption in models because effectively innovation in the online space is driven by investment greed and not business models.
Sure.
So, and I think you can almost trace it back to Clark, who invented silicon graphics and then subsequently was one of the investors in Netscape. I think so many of the major VCs missed out on that then they kind of went crazy and every idea became a great idea. And we're still in that in version 2 now. We've had the version 1 bubble, version 2 bubble. And I think it's driven by that. And I think that will continue to alter publishing as new devices come out, and we'll just adapt, and because we fundamentally believe content is king. I think in our industry, what's about to be disrupted is television very significantly. We're just beginning to see the kind of starting signs of that. I mean, TV Tracker, which is the business we acquired 6 months ago, it has monitored for the last 5 years 30 plus portals of video usage. Obviously YouTube, the well-known ones, Hulu, but there's a ton of others, and then we've got the new channels that have just come out from YouTube, and we're tracking those constantly in terms of episodic programming. That's a small number, given that the barriers are so low. I mean, I'm looking for that number to grow up. I can't even predict what it'll be thousands of portals and channels over the next 3 years. That has to have a fundamentally disruptive effect on television. I mean, it's an interesting idea. Take a 30-second slot in Pop Idol, American Idol here, and work out the CPM rate and what you would pay to reach an audience. The question I would ask is, why can you buy almost the same number for about 1/10 of the price in idol.com? Mm-hmm. And that level of price disruption is going to ultimately affect television. It probably isn't at the moment, but these things have a habit of creeping up on industries.
Yeah, I think my opinion is it's going to be in the flow of funds. Again, back to how money moves. If you think about Coca-Cola being an impulse purchase with a little pocket change, when you don't have that change, how are you going to buy the Coke? Very pragmatic. Phone becomes a solution. We've seen news articles about here in the United States, the Salvation Army adopting Square to address that problem because consumers walking into malls don't have change to put in the kettle. An example in Stockholm, similar, in this case, a homeless newspaper enterprise, a way to raise funds for the homeless. They were suffering a decline in revenue because consumers didn't have the pocket change to buy those newspapers. So they adopted an SMS capability, an SMS payment capability, removing the friction of cash. Believe it or not, one of Coca-Cola's challenges is growing distribution. While most places that sell soft drinks sell Coke, there probably aren't enough places that sell soft drinks. So we have an initiative called 5 by 20. 5 million women entrepreneurs, mostly in developing markets, being established as distributors. We want to accomplish that by 2020. It makes no sense to set them up as a cash business. It makes how they learn to market our product through mobile web, through text, how they learn how to run their business through mobile web, through text, maybe through apps at some point, how they get paid, the flow of funds, the flow of information, inserting itself where previous technologies haven't been able to penetrate, open up a world of possibilities. I know you've read the same Economist article that I have. A 10% increase in mobile phone penetration in an emerging market grows GDP 0.6%. That's where the wealth comes from to buy products like Coke and other products. So it's that flow of money.
Because it's opening up new opportunity. It's not just shifting money from one side to the other. It's genuinely new
money.
Opportunity.
It's new money, new business, new growth, more successful businesses where we had less efficient ways of doing it in the past.
I think that there's a huge legacy business attached to media, to broadcast television. I don't, 70, $80 billion a year business when you count media companies and distributors and advertisers. And there's very large new entrants getting involved in as well, including Amazon and Google and Apple. So what was a fairly stable, very large industry with players being, I think, fairly well defined in terms of where they competed against who and who they partnered with.
Battle lines were very clear.
Yeah, pretty clear, I think. All that's getting scrambled, and you know that parties that were customer vendor today are maybe potentially switching roles as things evolve, and large players like Turner, I think, are you know, entering and exiting businesses all the time and segments all the time. And this is a very, very dynamic situation.
Well, I think it goes back to what we talked a little bit earlier, is this idea of bringing more things that you traditionally would pay for when you purchase the car. You know, can you bring that in through mobile? And in fact, OnStar, you know, there's a lot of companies, startups that are trying to do what OnStar does
right on
inside on a device.
Yeah.
And you know, for me, it's like, you know, if your car gets stolen and you want to invoke our stolen vehicle location service, what are you going to do? Throw your phone at the back of the car as it's driving away,
that's what it is.
right? And you know, and I'm not sure in the event of a crash, I want to trust a phone that's flying through the cockpit of the vehicle as my lifeline to help. So, you know, I think that there's these disruptors, but some of them are real challenges, you know, and serious threats, and others are kind of just, you know, there's not a lot of substance there. So, you know, you got to pick and choose which ones you're going to really worry about.
Right.
For us, I think it's just consumption habits are changing. So we have to have our content readily available at all times, and we're not going to be able to. We can't control. We've known this for a while, but we can't control when people are consuming it. So I think that's the major change in mobile burns.
That's what it's going to do. It's going to people wanting to watch it when they want to,
it's
wherever they are.
On-demand world.
This is a disruptive technology, mobile. Mm-hmm. Mobile, just as a global thing, is starting to eat up industries. How does it disrupt the commerce and the payments? It's such an obvious question, I think. But what are you seeing that what was once there, established companies or established norms or practices, are going to be disrupted by mobile?
Well, so what it's going to do is it's going to shift market barriers. That's sort of a not very friendly way to describe it, but you know, before you had location, so you only had certain choices available to you based on how far you could go. Mm-hmm. So if you were a person who didn't have a car, your choices were limited by walking. If you had a car, by driving. If you had a plane, wherever, right? And so I think that this is a really disruptive technology because it has the potential of allowing you to engage in, and not just money, but engage in content, you know, exchanges on a global basis, but also on a time basis, which is what mobile really brings over the desktop. Because a desktop, you have to be somewhere,
right,
sitting down using it. The great power of mobile is that it's with you. And so I think that it changes the market barriers so that competitors, content providers, stores, they can't rely on certain barriers that they could rely on before to compete. So they're going to have to find new ways to compete. And that will bring good things and bad things, right? I mean, to the extent that it turns us into a nation and a world of only chains, I don't want to see that.
Right.
But to the extent that it can take instead somebody who has a very special local product and gives them the chance for the first time ever to get that product out to the world, it could actually be a great benefit to society as a whole. And so it's all in our hands, and the technology itself isn't good or bad.
So it spawns innovation ultimately.
It can spawn
creativity.
It can spawn innovation if we view it the right way.
Okay.
Well, you know, it's a great question, and I was having dinner with my kids who are, you know, various teenage and below, and we were having this philosophical discussion, which was probably way too deep for them, which was, how has life really changed? I mean, there used to be, you know, no cars, and there were cars, and there was no planes, and there's no planes. Has audio equipment really changed that much? What's so different about now? And it's communication, right? And so I think what consumers have said is, we love to communicate with each other.
Yeah.
We do love to communicate.
We don't like talking to each other.
Yeah.
We like texting to each other.
Yeah, we're a little bit standoffish. We like our Facebook and our Twitter, and they like that. And I think that's a disruption that's going to continue. If you think about mobile, the unique part about mobile is that it's on you 100% of the time. It affords you multiple different ways to interact, and those interactions are real time.
Right.
And that's very powerful. And if marketers and brands can learn how to shape their messages in ways that consumers are ready to have them, then I think the world that we have moving forward is going to be very personalized, very contextual. There hopefully won't be tons of spam.
It's always a risk, though.
I don't even go on the internet anymore because it's like I'm just inundated with banner ads. And how do they know I was looking at a Toyota? And I'm freaked out now. But it's going to be a little bit more personalized than that. It's going to be there's going to be a little bit more trust. And I think because of that, a lot of the things that they talk about in terms of not just the engagement, but the business opportunity to really know your customers is going to change.
Cash will be with us for a while, but we're getting closer to the end of cash, and that's a good thing. Cash does create a lot of inefficiencies in the economy. Transactions that are in cash are or money that's being held in cash is not liquid. It's not in the financial system. It's
not trackable.
It's not trackable. It's not traceable. It's not accountable.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily taxable, which creates all sorts of distortions in the economy and in government policy too. And so there's enormous benefits to electronifying cash for everybody, for all citizens, I think, and for including being able to include more people into the financial system too. But as for disruption, I think we are going to see a lot of disruption from these new channels, and I think it behooves all of us to learn as much as we can and move as fast as we can, because there's some great new changes coming, but some of them are going to be some of them are disruptive, some of them are empowering. You look at solutions like barcode scanners in retail. So if I walk into a store now, I can point my phone at a box on the shelf and Google it, and suddenly I have access to more information than maybe even the store manager does about, is this a good product or is this a good price? So if you're thinking of this from a store perspective, you have to worry about online vendors now stealing business out of your aisles, or your consumers negotiating better prices from you. And so you as a merchant have to really start thinking about, what's your digital experience? What's the reason for consumers to use my app instead of somebody else's app, right? And I think that's where we'll see a ton of disruption and innovation in terms of merchants thinking, how do they create a digital experience in addition to their existing physical e-commerce?